Hello. Today I'm musing on, based around a post that I saw on Facebook. Let's pull it up. The Facebook post said, let's put it up and put my glasses on so I can read it. A good trainer will make a troubled horse look easy, and a bad trainer makes an easy horse look troubled. And I thought, that makes a lot of sense. Of course it does. But the thing that actually stuck with me was the word trainer. And I think that's something that I really want to talk about today, because I'm a little concerned that quite a lot of horse owners don't think of themselves as trainers. And yet every time you touch a horse, every time you handle a horse on the ground, every time you bring it in from the field, every time you ride it, every time you do anything with it, you're training that horse. And I think there is a little feeling now that people think, you know, a trainer is a professional horse person, a riding instructor, a professional horse starter, you know, somebody who schools horses for other people and all the rest of it. And of course, they are trainers. But if you send your horse away to be schooled for 2, 6, 8 weeks, and then it comes back and it spends the rest of its time with you, it is going to be the horse that you train by handling it, rather than the 8 weeks that it's spent with a professional trainer. That's 2 months of its life, and it might have all the rest of its life with you. And like it or not, that horse is learning whatever you are teaching it. And I think a lot of people don't realise what they are teaching their horses. So when they end up with a horse that has a few issues, it's very easy to blame the horse. I mean, I'm thinking, again, I can think of individual examples, and that would be wrong of me to talk about that, so I will generalise. But I can think of generalities where the horse is in fact quite an easy horse. It hasn't really got any ifs or buts or maybes. But it doesn't appear easy. It appears quite a difficult horse because of the way that it has been handled, the way it's been ridden. And yet people will turn around and say, oh, you know, that's not, you know, it's a difficult horse, it's this, it's that, it's the other. And you know, if you've got a bit of experience about you, that had that horse been in different hands and handled differently, then it would be unrecognisable, because basically that horse has learnt what its rider has taught it over a period of time. So I think that people who go into horse ownership have a responsibility, and I know that this is a sort of becoming a bit of a theme in these muses, but I do really firmly believe this, that I think people perhaps go into horse ownership. It's fine that you don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. And actually, those of us who may know a bit actually know how much we don't know. You know, there's always more to learn. But I think sometimes people go in and they are blissfully ignorant. And that ignorance is, well, I mean, that bliss, in fact, is destroyed very, very quickly. It stops being blissful when you actually have a horse of your own. And, you know, you've bought that horse and it's been sold to you as, you know, nice, safe horse, sensible and all the rest of it. And within a short period of time, it's not a safe horse anymore, or you don't think it's a safe horse and you're becoming nervous of it. And we see this all the time, and this is where the handling of the horse comes in. I'll give you a specific example, because it's a good example. I have a friend who we have recently bought a new young horse for. And this horse was absolutely foot perfect for the first month. She's an experienced rider, and she knew perfectly well that she needed to spend as much time as she possibly could on this horse in the first 4 weeks, because when he got his feet under the table, he would likely start to test a few boundaries. So she knows that, and of course that's exactly what he's done, and she's handled it, and you know, and he's back to being foot perfect, and he'll be, you know, there'll be a few other little issues as he goes along because he's a young horse, but by and large she has the measure of him, and she knows what's what because she's done this before, and she's very, very aware that every single thing she does with this horse is teaching this horse what is expected of him and what is not expected of him. Now, had this horse not belonged to this very experienced person, but had belonged to a first-time horse owner, and frankly he could have ended up with a first-time horse owner, because he's a very sensible, nice horse. And, you know, when we went to try him out, he was one of these like, wow, you know, if he puts a hoof wrong, he's da-da-da-da-da and all the rest of it. So he could have ended up with a first-time horse owner. And he would have done exactly the same with the first-time horse owner as he did with my friend. And the first-time horse owner would have had no idea what to do with the horse when he started to test the boundaries a little bit. And she would more than likely have reacted in a completely different way. And the horse would have learned, I can get away with that behaviour. So if I don't fancy going out of the yard today, if I throw a little strop, my rider is going to freeze on my back, or is going to go fetal, or is going to, you know, get very nervous and not know what to do, and is going to, and if I just, you know, if I'm just naughty at that point and just prefer not to do what, then she's going to get off me, or she's going to turn me around, and we're going to go home. And so that would have been a lesson he would have learned. So of course, the next time he would see if that lesson had gone in. So very quickly, the relationship between the horse and the trainer would then become the horse is then the trainer. The horse is training the owner that, you know, he doesn't like certain things, and therefore he's not going to do certain things. And the owner, if they haven't got the experience, they're going to sort of like, oh, well, you know, there's nothing I can do about that. He doesn't like this. He won't do that. He won't go in this area here, and, you know, all the rest of it. So you end up very quickly with a horse that won't go in front, won't go out on its own, won't go out of the yard, will only go in certain places, won't go past certain things, won't go on a box, won't stand still. You know, all of the things that, you know, can happen is you know, that horse is being trained. He is learning from his trainer, the horse owner, what he can and can't get away with on, you know, the things that are and are not acceptable. And he thinks all these things are acceptable because he's a horse. Why wouldn't he, you know? And you can't blame the horse. And I think that the problem with the rider who hasn't got a really clear plan of what they want to achieve with this horse, and they haven't got any tools in the toolkit, they can very quickly turn an easy horse into looking like a troubled horse. Whereas the same horse with a more experienced rider who's more confident and who's come across this before and who's got some help and support and all of these good things, they can make that horse that may be a little bit troubled at the begin with, because he's like, oh, I don't think I want to do this, and she can get through that with the horse, and that horse can then go back to being an easy horse. And you know, I think more people have got to get to grips with this, and I suppose, you know, when we are all trainers, and we have to understand that, you know, if you think of yourself as being like a teacher, and you're not a teacher of children. So, you know, you've got a completely different experience and you've never taught a class full of children. I mean, seriously, would you, if you had no teaching experience, walk into a class of, you know, 10-year-olds and start teaching them a lesson? You'd be bad. And, you know, anybody who is a teacher who's looking at this would just roll their eyes and think, oh, yeah, they'd die. You know, I mean, that would be the short route. They've no idea, because they don't know how to do a lesson plan. They've never been trained. They've never worked with, you know, lots of different children. They've never done any of these things. So you wouldn't do it. If somebody walked up to you in the street and said, oh, actually, there's a class full of 30 10-year-olds. We'd like you to take a lesson with them. You'd just laugh in their face and say, no, of course I won't do it. But people will go out and buy a horse, and they will have a horse, and they won't have a lesson plan. And they've had a few lessons, they've done bits and bobs, but they haven't done all the things that turns them into a successful trainer. I'm not saying that you have to be, you know, Spanish riding school standard. I'm not saying that you have to have, you know, all the qualifications in the world. You don't. But what you have to have is you have to have a clear plan. And when things go wrong, you have to know why that's happened. You know, is it because the horse is just lacking confidence? Is it because the horse has got a long-term issue? Is it likely that the horse has got a, whatever, I mean, let's face it, most of the time horses don't do what you want them to do in a school or out hacking because they're frightened and they haven't got any confidence. They won't go past that object because they're not confident. And you can't blame them for that. So, without wanting to go on and on and on about it, we are all trainers. Every time we pick up the lead rope, every time we pick up a pair of reins, every time we pat our horse, we are training it. And I would like more people to be really aware of that fact. So after being wagging my finger at everybody today, and it is, again, something I feel quite strongly about, which is why I've whittled on about it in this muse, I will sign off. Bye now.